Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week's conversation was a blast. I'm so excited to have you with me for this next segment. Let's get back to the show.
I think that's a problem just inherently with the interview process itself, is that the employer asks, 50 minutes of questions and then you get 5 minutes at the end. And that's really not a lot of time to really dig in and ask, okay, so you're telling me that you have a list of individual donors that you just don't have time to get to. Okay. Well, what does that mean? What kind of donors are they? Like, are you expecting me to get $1 million gifts from somebody who's been giving $1,000? Like, what does that pipeline really look like? Is the CEO willing to go on donor calls? Especially with high net worth individual donors? Are there systems and processes in place to support these goals? And it's hard to have those conversations when you're interviewing because you get such limited time for your own questions. But I think you have to push that. You have to ask those questions. I remember, so when I was interviewing for this role that I'm in right now, it was, I don't know, third round maybe. And it was me and everyone in the C-suite. And so my title is vice president. And so I swear for like the first 10 or 15 minutes, we were just talking philosophically about philanthropy and fundraising and how I view it and how they view it. And finally, the chief external affairs officer was like, I hate to interrupt this, but we actually do have questions we have to ask. And so it was nice, though, just kind of understand philosophically, like where they were, where I was, what we could talk about. And I thought it was helpful just to understand, like, this is how we both operate.
I would think that would be really critical. So I'm glad you got to have that conversation. Well, transitioning a bit here, thinking more about, instead of maybe what fundraisers could learn from your experience, I'm sure that there's a lot that a hiring manager could learn from your experience as well. For example, don't send out notices like that on Christmas Eve, right?
Yep.
Based on your recent search, what are some of the most common misconceptions you find nonprofit hiring managers, especially those that are non-fundraisers, have about what makes a great major gift officer?
So I think, and I even thought this myself for a while, and am thrilled to know that it's not the case, but I think that a lot of people think that major gift officers, they're like one of their strengths on Strength Finder should be woo, and they should be like, sales type people. And that's really not the case. I think the best fundraisers are those that listen, that have empathy, that can understand individuals, that prioritize, maybe your strength is individualization and you see the person for who they are. I think that is more important than woo as a strength. Like if you're looking at Strength Finder, woo is dead last on my Strength Finder list. And it used to embarrass me as a fundraiser because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm a fundraiser and I can't, that's like not my style. Now I feel like the field is coming around to people like me, and it's not such a bad thing. But people that aren't in fundraising don't understand that. And then the other part of it is, if you're not in fundraising, you think that, oh, all you could do is go out and ask for money. Just do it. Like it's just ask the person for money. Just ask them for $1 million. Why don't you find Mackenzie Scott? Why isn't Bill Gates giving to us? And there's a lot more to it. And so I think that's those are probably the two most important things.
How often do you think you'd ran into those two things? I know you weren't applying for every job out there, but how frequently did you run into that, do you think?
I mean, I would probably say about half the jobs that I applied for. So half the jobs that I applied for and got interviews for. So I interviewed because I was so picky, I did get a lot of interviews. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was over 50%.
I was going to say, that's a really great hit rate in today's environment.
Yeah. I mean, it was like over 50%. Like I was getting interviews. I was withdrawing from roles. I was like, there was a lot going on. I mean, it was a full-time job. There was a time where it was literally a full-time job. And I would say about half the time I would get, conversations where it's like, we have so much low-hanging fruit, or we just need somebody to ask, and it's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that.
And how would you say that organizations' job postings and interview processes, how did that reveal whether they understood the nuance and strategic nature of major gift fundraising? I guess to ask that a different way, if I'm a hiring manager and I want to indicate that I get this stuff effectively, what should I do?
Talk about relationships and partnerships throughout the entire job description. Talk about, I mean, you can talk about your vision, your strategy, your goals, dollar amounts. That's fine. I get it. Like, we do have metrics that we have to meet. But I think that if you center it in the relationship aspect, those of us in the field will understand that, and we can see, like, okay, this is important. Like, if your first line is like bring in $600,000 in your first 6 weeks, like, it's not a great job description at all.
Right, right.
And I also think, like, during the interview process, like, make sure that that the fundraiser is not just talking to other people in the development staff. Make sure there's somebody from program or somebody from finance, especially if they're going to be working with budgets and grant proposals. Make sure that there's other people involved, but at the same time, they don't have to meet every single person, and it doesn't have to be a 10-step process. And there are some that are 10 steps, and I've been through them, and that's exhausting because at the end, you're like, at this point, I don't care anymore. And that's awful to say, but from a candidate perspective, you're just exhausted. And so I think that's some of the things that I would want employers to understand.
Is there any other advice you might give to nonprofit leaders about how to make their organizations more appealing to experienced fundraisers during the recruitment process?
Mm. It's such a fascinating question. And this isn't really going to, I mean, I want to answer your question, but there's something else that's also on my mind kind of related to this. But I think
Yeah.
having the CEO and the leader involved in the interview process, I think, is important. Like, I think that making sure that, especially if it's like a higher level fundraising position, I think it's important that the CEO or the executive director and the major gift officer can work well together. That doesn't mean they agree on everything. I mean, I had
Hmm.
a role where I pushed back on my executive director all the time. And so for like, sorry, 6 months or so, I mean, the first 6 months we were just back and forth, but I ended up staying there for 6 years. So, like, you get to a good point. But I do want to say something about the recruitment process. So, I, there's an organization that I worked for. I will not name them, but they had the best recruitment ever. I mean, their talent acquisition team, top notch. They made me feel like amazing. Like, I basically had, there was like a video that they would put out about the role. For some roles, they would do a webinar where candidates could come and like interact with the hiring manager and ask questions and get a better feel for the role. When you hit a certain point, they had what I would call a concierge, where that person would be like, okay, so here are the people that you're meeting with. Here are the competencies that they're going to be looking for. Here are some of the questions that you may be asked. Like, it was very thoughtful and caring for the employee as a human being, because that's what we all are. We're humans, even though we can come across as, oh, you're just a candidate. They were amazing. It was amazing. With that said, and I have told them this now that I'm no longer there, I said, I think you almost do too good of a job at your job.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Fundraising can be hard work, and it can be hard to mentally get into the place you need to be in order to see new opportunities. Everyone struggles with it. We are like the fish in the fishbowl who just can't see the water they're swimming in. That's when having outside expertise comes in handy. For 25 years, I've been helping nonprofits analyze their challenges, discover new ways forward, and develop clear plans that lead to greater fundraising revenues. Now I am available to help your organization develop the abundant vision it needs to inspire new levels of philanthropy at your nonprofit as well. Check out abundantvision.net to start your journey toward greater fundraising success today. Now, back to the show.
There needs to be some reality. There needs to be some basis of, this job is tough and here's why. Or this isn't always, yes, our benefits are amazing. Yes, we have a 4-day work week, but here are some of the drawbacks and things that you're going to have to think about in this role. Like, I think there's a good balance to have. Like, don't set it up to be this like amazing role, because anybody who's been in this field for 25 years or more, we've seen it. And we're like, yeah, okay. And so I told the talent management team at that organization, I was like, you guys are really, really good at your job, and it's almost a detriment to the organization. Like, you need to be a little more real with the candidates.
Wow. Here we go.
All right.
All right. So, Brianna, were there any standout examples of organizations that really got it right, either in how they structured the role or how they engaged with you as a candidate?
Yeah, I think, there was an organization that I worked for that was amazing. They did a great job cultivating, to use a donor term, cultivating their candidates. And they would have intro webinars and opportunities for you to engage with the hiring manager and the team. They would, at one point, they would give you what I would call a concierge to make sure that you prepared and you knew who you were going to talk to and what competencies you were looking at. And then at the end, like, they would even share with you, like, okay, so here's the next steps and here's what you're doing. And here, I mean, they just really kind of held your hand through the process and made you feel like a human. I also think the role that I'm in right now did a great job, in that I've been there, it was like December to January. So it wasn't, I applied in December, had an offer in January. So it wasn't this long drawn out process. And also, I didn't have to do some take home assignment where I was providing them with a marketing strategy or a fundraising strategy for the year, which was nice. I provided my work that I had done in the past, but I wasn't doing free work. And I think that that's important. And I think there's equity issues around the free work, because not everyone has the time to have a full-time job and then also do work for free.
How would you say nonprofit leaders, and this is a little bit beyond what we were talking here, but I mean, since you're a new employee in a kind of a new role, relatively speaking, how can nonprofit leaders better support newly hired fundraisers in their first 90 days to really set them up for long-term success?
Give them the time to understand the work. Give them the time to have those intro conversations with their colleagues, to build relationships with their colleagues, to have, just coffee chats with donors where there's not this pressure to make an ask on your first visit, because that's just not, it just doesn't feel good, if I'm being honest. Like, and it just doesn't feel good, I think, from either perspective, the donor or the fundraiser, because it is about relationships. And so if you can just give your employee that time, I think it sets them up for success in the long run, because they will feel more confident in the work that they're doing. They will understand the theory of change. They will understand what they are actually hired to do. And I think that that's probably like the number one thing that you can do, is give them time.
That's great. Yeah, that's excellent advice. It's, the worst thing you want to feel when you're coming in as a new employee is to feel all this pressure to meet budget. And if you don't make the asks, then everybody gets fired because there's not enough money. And that really gets in the way of the relationship building aspect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And relationships, like, this is a
So,
check. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, no, no, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that relationships don't always follow the timeline that the budget may want you to follow. The finance team may want you to follow. Like, and so that's hard too. Like, understanding, like, I understand there's the bottom line from the finance perspective, but also, like, this relationship is evolving and we've learned something new, and there's something else that they may be interested in. And so we're, going back and forth and ideating on this proposal, and I don't know if we're going to close it in the next 30 days, but we may, but there may be an opportunity for it to be bigger and we close it in the next 60 days. So I think that that's the challenge too.
So, one question I meant to ask you earlier, I didn't think of until just now. When you were going through these searches, did you engage with search firms at all, or were you pretty much just out there on your own looking for jobs on job boards?
If a role was posted through a search firm, I did. I think search firms are great and they have their place. I think sometimes they can get in the way of a speedy hiring process. I feel like I sort of learned that if it is a search firm, to add 4 to 6 weeks,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because they want to vet.
I've Yeah, exactly. I can think of situations where a fundraiser has made contact with an organization about a job, and then the organization hires the search firm even after the fundraisers reached out about a particular job posting, and then the whole process has been delayed months and months when they probably would have hired that person anyway. So that really can slow things down.
And
Go ahead.
real quick, yeah, so
Hmm.
this is the other thing too, like, I once applied for a job that, like, I applied and I immediately got a decline. I mean, it was, like, within the hour, and then, like, the next week, I had a search firm reach out to me about that role, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like, I just
Wow.
applied directly through their site and was declined. He's like, "Oh, yeah, we took it down they took it down last week because we're gonna start the search for them." And I was like, "Okay." So it's just like starting it all over again. And so that was a little bit of a frustration.
Well, you've shared a lot of great advice with us today, Brianna. Is there anything else that you'd want to say, either to folks looking for jobs presently or to folks looking to hire somebody great?
Be yourself on both sides, be authentic, be real. At the end of the day, you're going to be working with these people 8 to 10 hours, even if it's remote. You're still going to be pretty much connected with all the technology. And so I think that it's so important to just be yourself, because if you're faking it during the interview process, either side, there's going to be a disconnect when you start, and you're just going to be starting all over, both the employer and the employee. So just be yourself.
Yeah, that's so important. That's great. Well, Brianna, thank you so much for all the time you spent with us today. Uh, Certainly wish you the best of luck in this new role. I hope you're there a long time and you do a lot of great things for the world.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's the show for today. Thank you all for joining us. Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.